Wat Lanka. As it seems, there is no date that can be confirmed for the construction of this stupa. They say that because of the architectural style of it, that it's probably dating from the beginnings of Ayutthaya. This leads me to question about how these things come, how reality or how real history, archaeology, and those things are. Because it could all have been created at any given time, even immediately, if the world was to be, for instance, a simulation or a pre-made reality. It's difficult to know. Once I was in Siem Reap and I visited an abandoned temple. This temple had in one of the walls a Buddha carving. The reason why it was interesting was because the Buddha in that carving was holding a square meter. And I wonder, because I had never seen a Buddha holding a square, which is known to be a Masonic symbol of the Masons, right? The ones that lay bricks and build buildings. They need a compass and the square to lay out the construction and the stability of whatever they build. So, is that historically sound? A Buddha holding a square? I'm not sure about it. So that takes me to another question, which is, what is the point of life? You see, in a way, we have all these religious, spiritual traditions that tell you to behave good. They have commandments. They are not the same, but they are very similar across most spiritual traditions. For instance, in dharmic religions such as Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, and all those sorts of religions, it is believed that your actions create a baggage, and this baggage can be good or bad. It's like a tally, to be more concrete. It's like the things you do are tallied in a receipt, and sooner or later, those things will come to you as a bill, as a check. And if it's good, you'll receive that good. If it's bad, you'll have to pay that bad. So it's effectively a tally on your life. Christianity is similar, but it happens once at the date of dying. It's when your tally comes to you. Egyptians believe the same. It's actually a very beautiful concept and image, that of your heart being weighted against the feather of a bird, right? And if your heart weighs less than the feather of that bird, you're granted afterlife in good position. If it's heavier, then you're granted hell. This is a very beautiful image to look at and contemplate. Now, one could say that this is one way of interpreting reality. But if I want to play the devil's advocate, I could say that it could be the opposite. Let's say that life was a simulation. And in fact, this simulation is run by aliens or gods, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just a conceptual exercise. And in this experience, you would be tested if you would submit and be passive towards the reality in which you find yourself, that is imposed to you by society and the world at large, or if you revolt, if you rebel against it. In a way, Christianity talks about this as well. It talks about Lucifer and the falling of the angels, that Lucifer thought he was better or more than God, and as such, he was cast out. So it's an interesting point of view to consider as well, because sometimes there are definitely situations where you have to be assertive, right? Where the way external persons, the external world, the external society forces you to be assertive, and you need to assert, and you need to be assertive, and you need to stand your ground because it's your life, and you should be firm in how you stand in life. I would say that the most important thing about it would be that this would be a valid point of view to see the world, but that it depends on how your actions and your rebellion infringes on the third party beings that you interact with, right? Because, for instance, monastic life, Buddhist monks, Catholic monks, Hindus, Brahmins, they all, in a way, rebel against the ways of the world. They detach themselves from the world in a way. So that's an act of rebellion. But their rebellion does not infringe on the liberty of others. I'm not talking about preachers and priests that push further an agenda or are active. I'm talking more about almost in the way true monks would behave, where they become secluded and live their life in simplicity. This is definitely, no matter what, if it's feudal system, if it's capitalistic system, if it's communism, it's a rebellion, but it does not infringe on others. So you could also rebel against the world, against society, by becoming a criminal. And again, there's a gradient of what this means, right? If you're smuggling items that are first necessities, but do not do harm to no one, actually suppress uh, a missing thing in life of people, then that wouldn't be problematic, right? But if you would, in your rebellion, need to push suffering into people, armed conflict, killing, smuggling or dealing in businesses that destroy lives for your own power and increase of wealth, then that would be a different kind of rebellion. So, as everything in life, there's a gradient. And the way we talk about things sometimes is not nuanced enough to show this gradient. For instance, one might say in Europe, we need tougher laws for criminals. Because, for instance, you can shoot somebody in the street and kill them, and you'll get 20 years because there's no life sentence nor death sentence. So we need to be tougher on them. At the same time, this could be interpreted as someone that, and I don't consume drugs anymore. I did when I was younger. I smoked weed and all that stuff. But it would be completely different from being tougher on, for instance, someone consuming an illicit substance, right? Because that ultimately, even if it hurts you, it doesn't hurt others. So again, there's a gradient of things, and I think that we tend to shift towards these extremes. So when we say we need to be tougher on crime, we it's like a catch-all for everything that we deem criminal. But obviously, not every crime is the same. A person that sets out to harm someone methodically is completely different than someone that hurts or kills someone protecting another one, even though it's still or can be considered a crime. And where I was going with all this is that ultimately is the way something makes you feel, and not in the woke sense of the word, oh, I don't feel this is right. It's not that. It's intimately, not intellectually. The way something makes you feel tells you if that action is noble or not.